What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Blake with the Linux Fraud, and today I wanted to check out Solus Linux, or Solus OS. Originally it was called Evolve OS, and recently, after a couple of years, they finally put out an update, and so I figured why not let's check it out. So I whipped up a VM. We're going to check that out, and the Budgie environment. You can, of course, get GNOME, Plasma, and Mate as well for a desktop environment, but I'm going to go with Budgie because I've never used Solus and I've never used Budgie. So I figured it'd be a good time to check out both of those things, kind of kill two birds with one stone. But first, I'll be honest, I think that distro reviews are not pointless, but if I just whip up a VM and this is the first time I've ever checked out a distribution, yeah, a first look is good. It's not really a review. I feel like to do a review, you've got to use that distribution for at least a few weeks, right? Up to a month or something like that. And if you're doing that and then giving a long-term review about it, that makes sense. With these first looks, I think it's kind of boring to just whip up a VM and look at the pre-installed applications. So instead of just doing that, I kind of wanted to dive a little deeper into the history of Solus and kind of see where it started, how it started, and what it has become today. So starting off, let's talk about what exactly is Solus. And Solus is an independently developed distribution which uses now a rolling release model. So its package manager, EO package, is actually based off of, it's called a PISI, or it's PISI package management system, which is from Pardis Linux. And Pardis Linux is a Turkish government-backed Linux distribution. I guess they use it in their governments over in Turkey and enterprise businesses over there. So that's what the package manager is based off of. I don't know, I couldn't find anything about why it's based on that. Now you may be asking, like I did myself, what is PISI, or am I even pronouncing it correctly? It's capital P, lowercase I, capital S, lowercase I. Also, I am so sorry if the camera gets shaky because I spin in my chair a little bit, and if I hit my desk, it'll make the camera wobble, so I do apologize in advance if that ever does happen. From a quick Google search, I found out that PISI, the package manager or package management system, so it actually stands for Packages Installed Successfully as Intended. Now, I don't really know. I think the same Turkish developers that created Pardis Linux is actually the ones that created this package management system. The only reason why I say that is because on the GitHub page, there's a line that says that PISI, P-I-S-I, in the Turkish language actually means kitty. Don't exactly know what the connection is there between that, but because they are referencing the Turkish language, I'm just assuming it's all the same devs over there. But yeah, I've never used EO package, so we'll have to check that out when we get into the VM. A little bit of history on Solus OS. So it hasn't been around for very long. It came out in 2015. Actually, December 27th, 2015 is when Ike Doherty, and I apologize if I am pronouncing that name wrong because I probably am, he released the version 1.0, which was codenamed Shannon. Now, I guess all the releases for Solus are named after rivers in Ireland. So there is a River Shannon in Ireland, and that's what Solus 1.0 was based on. Now, I don't know, I didn't look up all the other code names or, for the other releases, but I'm assuming that they're named after rivers in Ireland. So when Doherty released Solus 1.0, it was actually on a point release. They were going to do a point release model. Well, in July of 2016, they actually decided to drop the point release, so something like Ubuntu, right, that have point releases, and they decided to take up the rolling release model. So that happens in 2016. Jump forward a couple of years to 2018, and that's actually when Doherty, the lead developer and maintainer of Solus, actually announces that he's going to leave. He's resigning. So once they decide in 2016 to drop the point releases and then go to a rolling release model, so then fast forward a couple of years to 2018, and in November of that year, Doherty actually announces that he's resigning from like lead developer and leaving Solus. Now he doesn't give an exact reason, but he just kind of says like life problems and just, life happens. Things came up in life, and then he also mentions that he has a kid, so fatherhood, of course. That stuff takes a lot of time, and then to try and devote so much time to a distribution, I completely understand it. Totally understand why somebody would step down from maintaining a distribution. Life happens, life happens. In November of 2018, Phoronix, so they put out an article, and within that article, there's actually an open letter to, like, from Doherty to the Linux, or not the Linux community, the Solus community, just kind of explaining, like, why he's leaving. And also, like, within that letter, he basically gives over the rights and ownership of Solus to Josh Strobel, and also just the Solus community in general. So I'll link that down below. It's not a bad read if you want. I mean, it's obviously 5 years ago or something, so that's kind of old news by now. But yeah, I'll still leave it down below in case anybody wants to read it more in depth. Nowadays, Doherty is actually a lead developer on another Linux distribution called Serpent OS, and we'll kind of mention that here in a second. So 2018, Doherty leaves, and a guy named Josh Strobel, again, apologize if I mispronounce that name, he takes over as lead developer for Solus OS. Josh and the... Sorry about that, my new guitar came in the mail, so that's pretty fucking exciting. Anyway, back to Solus OS. Or is it Solus? Is it just Solus? I think it's just Solus, not Solus OS. No, it is. It's Solus OS. Anyway. So Josh and the contributions of the community, because mind you, the community helped Doherty along the way in maintaining and developing Solus OS. I guess the community behind Solus is very, just like any Linux distribution, they're very, gung-ho for their distribution. So of course they're going to help in any way that they can. So Josh and the contributions from the community keep the lights on for a while. They released Solus 4.0 in March of 2019. And then 4.1 in January of 2020. And then the 4.2 and 4.3 releases, they both came out in 2021. But then a year later in 2022, Josh Strobel, the second lead developer, he announces his resignation. So he's going to step down. And from there, that's when, things kind of go haywire for Solus. So Strobel, or Strobe, however you say, Josh, he leaves in 2022, right? Well, they haven't had a release since 2021. Now, earlier this year, in January of 2023, they had a power outage, which took down their infrastructure, took down their website, their forms, and even the development platform that's required to update the system. So that was a huge thing. A lot of people didn't know what was happening. They thought Solus was dead. I mean, they hadn't released anything for 2 years. And then, of course, the infrastructure, all that stuff, that goes down, kind of going haywire. It's, a lot of question marks around Solus and the community and everything and what was going on. And I guess from what I've read, there's a blog post from Josh on the Solus website that kind of explains everything that happened. And he actually posted that, at least that's the author's name is his name. And it was posted like after he had already resigned. So I don't know if he decided to come back or if he's still just helping out here and there. I don't really know. But there's a blog post kind of explaining what happened and what they're planning to do for the future of Solus. Because, like a lot of people thought, Solus is not dead. They just came out with Solus 4.4 just not too long ago, a few days ago, maybe about a week by now, and that's what we're going to be checking out today. So we're going to be checking out Solus OS and the Budgie desktop environment. And one more thing is Solus OS is it's made for the desktop user. That's who they had in mind when they created this distribution. They even say on their website that by default, they're not going to have any applications that you would see in an enterprise or a server situation. So it's for the desktop user. So speaking of that, let's jump into the VM. I've got it installed, and let's just, take a look at Solus OS, what it's like out of the box. I'm also going to install Linus. I like to just test out different distributions and see what their score is and whatnot. If you don't know what Linus is, check out my other video I did a while back. It's like a security auditing tool, mainly for servers and enterprise situations, but you can use it on a desktop. Yeah, if you want to check that out, go and check that. Let's jump into the VM and see what Solus is all about. Alright, so this is the Budgie desktop on Solus straight out of the box. It's definitely very GNOME-esque, and that's because they use GTK and, some components like their control center, screensavers. They're just forks of the GNOME version of those applications or those components. So just a quick little history of Budgie. It's developed by the Buddies of Budgie organization, which honestly I think is like one of the fucking dopest names. It's a team of contributors from like other distributions such as Arch, Fedora, Debian, etc. So Doherty actually created Budgie as the default desktop environment for, well, at that time it was Evolve OS. Distributions like Manjaro, Sparky Linux, they actually adopted Budgie back in 2015. Then Arch, Ubuntu, and Void Linux all followed suit in 2016. So I'm sure one of the great features that people really like about Budgie is the desktop icons. Similar to like Windows, it's got the panel down below, your main menu button of course, but then if you go over here, there's a little panel that will pop out of the right side of the screen. There's two tabs. There's widgets and then notifications. Widgets, of course, has your calendar. You can turn down your volume from here. I'm assuming that if you have any like Bluetooth headsets connected, it's going to show up on there. It would show like your Wi-Fi and stuff like that. And then also if you're playing music, maybe if you have Spotify or they have Rhythmbox down here as their default music player. So if you were playing that, it would definitely show the little play button, skip button, all that stuff, which you would see by default on literally any other music player. You're going to see that there. You go over your notifications. I don't have any, of course. When you're done updating or when a application is installed, things of that nature, that's going to show up here whenever those are completed. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to run an update and then install Linus because I would like to run that just to like give it a test, see what Budgie comes out by default, what the hardening index is. So let's pull up a terminal. I'm assuming that's definitely GNOME terminal there. Yes, while Budgie was built from the ground up from Doherty, you can tell there's a bunch of GNOME aspects to this to this desktop environment, which is completely understandable. If you're trying to have just a streamlined desktop user experience, you're going to want something like more streamlined, and GNOME is a great base, so why not kind of fork components and whatnot to create your desktop environment? Completely understandable. So the package manager, like I said, is EO package. So if we go EO package -- help, we've got a list of different options, arguments, etc. that you can do with the package manager. The only thing I'm really interested in right now is, okay, so it's upgrade. I just wanted to see if it was update or upgrade. So we can go sudo EO package upgrade. I don't think this will take very long. All right, so we're updated, rebooted. Let's go ahead and I'm going to install Linus now, and then we're going to run that test. And while it's running, we can kind of peek through the settings and whatnot and see what is there. Linus is not in the repo. Okay, so it just clicked to me. I'm reading this Reddit post from 7 years ago. Obviously, I tried to find Linus. Again, Solus is specifically for the desktop user. That's what they had in mind when they created this distribution. You would use Linus mainly in like a server environment. I'm going to look in to see if I can get Linus on here. I'm sure I can by adding a repo or an API or something. I just don't know if I want to go through that. In the meantime, so you've got a couple different menus for your settings. You've got the Budgie desktop settings right here. And here you can set the style of widgets, icons, cursors. You can set your desktop, if you want desktop icons, show your trash icon, things like that. So you don't have a bunch of choice when it comes to customization, but like I said, I really think that for someone that just wants a desktop environment that's going to work when they open it up to use it, this would be perfectly fine, right? I will say I don't see anywhere, you can see that this is like a dark theme, so's the terminal, that's a dark theme, but if I open up something like the calendar, that's a blinding white. Now I don't know why that doesn't change as well. And then you come down here to your bottom panel, you can of course also create a new panel. Within your bottom panel, you can add different applets and whatnot. Now, applets are kind of similar to GNOME extensions, and because you can add new applets, but I'll talk about that in a second. Here, of course, you've got your system tray, notifications, things of that nature. Sorry if it kind of seems like I'm all over sometimes. I mean, I'm doing this like as a first look, right? I really haven't went into these settings. I haven't looked. So this is all pretty, like this part's not scripted or anything, right? So I do apologize for that. But like I was saying, applets are very similar to GNOME extensions. GNOME extensions are very simple to install. You can do it right from the website. They even have an application for it now. You can move these around. You can add some of the default built-in applets, but I have not been able to find how to actually add like your own. But I haven't figured out a way, like a store or anything that you could, like GNOME extensions, that you can add different ones that you would want. You can of course then jump over to this other tab, the settings tab, and you have a few more settings for the panel as well. And that's all you have for Budgie desktop settings. Let's go ahead and look at the control center. So the Budgie control center. So yeah, this looks more like the GNOME settings. See, in GNOME settings, they usually have a appearance tab where you can set dark and light themes, and just right, I'm not saying anything for that. That's not a bad background, except for it still blinds me. I can't do anything light themed anymore. You've got all of your normal settings here, right? Notifications, Bluetooth, network, you can set up accounts, sound, power, display, your mouse and touchpad. You got your keyboard where you can set different key bindings and whatnot if you want. Go down here. So currently Solus uses X11. On their website, they have a blog post talking about the future with Wayland, so they definitely have a plan to implement Wayland, or at least add support. I would be very surprised if they just got rid of X11. I don't really see that happening, but there is plans in the future to implement Wayland as well, so that's kind of cool. Especially with something like this, I don't see why you wouldn't. I do think it still uses GTK2, which I would assume they would probably need to move up to like GTK4. I don't know. I'm not a Wayland developer or X11 developer, so I don't know if you can use GTK2 on Wayland or not. I would just assume it would probably cause more headaches than not. The kernel we're running is 6.3.12. Currently we're on 6.4.3, so it's a little behind, but not by much. So for a file manager, they do use Nemo. I saw they also used gedit as well for their text editor. They even use disks, so heavily inspired by GNOME. They take a lot of pieces from GNOME, of course, but that's fine. I mean, I think it's a pretty solid desktop environment, at least for this like last 20 minutes that I've been playing around with it, right? I could see how this is a desktop environment that somebody would want to live in. Alright, so like I said, Linus wasn't in the repos, but I was going to figure out a way to get it installed on here, and of course all you got to do is go and clone the repo. So that test is running right now. So before we finish off the video, let's check and see what this Linus score is going to be. So we've got a 60. Damn, that's actually, I think, the lowest score that I've ever seen. Ubuntu's like 64 by default. I think Fedora is actually like 72 or 73 because it has SE Linux enabled by default. Arch is like 65 or 64, and so is Ubuntu, I think. But yeah, 60, that's pretty low. This is all like research I've done, so I don't know if it's true or not, but the suggestion is to have it at least above like 70. Of course, you can go all the way to 100 if you want. I'm not going into depth about these at all. Definitely check out the other video if you want to see that, but all these are just suggestions that you can do. They give you a link right here. You can click on them and read the description on how to harden the system and what you're actually doing and whatnot. So it's actually really helpful if you ask me. Alright everybody, well that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you kind of got a history lesson on Solus. You know, you had fun while we checked out the VM. So the whole history thing, my thing is like I kind of said in the beginning, I think just whipping up a random distribution in a VM and like scrolling through the default apps for like 20-25 minutes, I don't know, it's kind of boring. So I kind of wanted to add a little bit of like history to it instead of just whipping up a distribution, kind of doing some research, seeing what the history of the distribution is, how it came about, who created it, what it's doing now, that kind of thing. So I just kind of wanted to add a little something more to it than just looking at a fucking Linux distribution for a half an hour. But I hope you like this, actual, you can see my face now. I've got my office set up, or it's actually like my bedroom / office, but I've got that all set up now. It's not complete, but it's at least enough now that I can do, actual content and whatnot. So I hope you enjoyed the video. To all my new subscribers, hello, welcome. I appreciate you for being here. And to all those that watch the videos but have not subscribed yet, there's like so many of you. Also hit that like button because it really helps out the channel way more than you know. What else is there? Oh, Patreon. I said that I was going to start doing Patreon exclusive videos starting this month in July. I'm not going to. So this is the thing. My thing with that is it's just there. I'm not going to really promote it. I'm going to obviously have it linked in the description of all the videos and stuff like that. And you'll see it if you go over to my Mastodon account and whatnot. I do have it promoted somewhat, but I'm not going to like throw it in people's face because there's nothing on it. Really all I've been doing, and I haven't even been doing it lately, I just re-upload my YouTube videos to that. So making YouTube videos, even if you're just recording yourself and not editing anything and just throwing it up there on YouTube, it still takes a bit of time to do. Now when you start adding like actual editing, you got to edit audio, you got to edit the video, it takes some time, right? And so if I'm going to make a video, I'm just going to put it on YouTube. I'm not going to put it on Patreon for my one patron. Although, Mislav, I don't know how to pronounce your name, I apologize. Of course I appreciate you for supporting the channel. It really does mean a lot to me. But I'm not going to do anything with Patreon right now until I come up with like a good idea, some actual incentive for people to go over there. Of course, go over there and help support the channel if you want to. I would greatly appreciate it. But there's just not really there's no return in your investment right now, and I'm just being transparent about it. I hope you liked the video. If you did, consider hitting that like button again because it really does help out the channel and the video and everything. It helps out more than you know. And also consider subscribing because we have a bunch more content coming your way.